I believe that this information dump is part of the consent. They want us to consent to their crimes, but they also want confusion. Hello. Today is going to be a little bit off topic, but also on topic. Over the past few months, Epstein stuff has been all over the news. Yes, Iran as well. But with the release of the Epstein files, it's definitely been in my eye a lot. So in this video, I'm going to talk about what's really going on here, or at least what I think is really going on here. This is going to be from a Gnostic perspective, but the question is, what can we expect? Before I get into it, I need to define two concepts very quickly: the Gnostic Demiurge and Loosh. If you want to skip ahead, you can go to this timestamp. In Gnosticism, the world was not created by a perfect God. Instead, it was fashioned by a lesser being, an arrogant craftsman known as the Demiurge. This ruler of the material realm surrounded himself with servants called archons, powers that manipulate, deceive, and maintain control over humanity through illusion. To the Gnostics, the visible world was not what it seemed. Power operated behind veils. Truth was buried beneath systems designed to keep people asleep and under control. Loosh is a modern esoteric concept from writer Robert Monroe. He described it as a kind of subtle emotional energy produced by human experiences, especially intense emotions like fear, suffering, love, or excitement. In Monroe's speculative cosmology, non-physical beings, the archons, harvest or feed on this energy, and the point of existence is to become almost a battery for these entities. So keeping that in mind, let's get into my ideas here. Soul harvest. So I've thought a lot about this, and I think that there are two ways to look at this. First, you can look at it in the Gnostic way. Human beings possess a divine spark. The material world traps that spark in cycles of suffering and ignorance. Negative emotions such as fear, trauma, and despair generate energy that sustains the controlling powers. Second, harvesting is not a literal farming of souls, but a metaphor for spiritual exploitation within a corrupt system. So in my mind, powerful elites deliberately create chaos, violence, or ritualized abuse to drain people of their autonomy, their vitality, their dignity. They create predatory economic structures, manipulative political cults to keep us all separated. Our energy is used to fuel the system. The Demiurge's playground, Precedents. Since this world is inherently flawed, these negative emotions are an intrinsic part of the equation of reality. It makes sense that some people would want to petition the rulers. They can also indulge in their darkest whims. In this worldview, these whims serve two purposes. The misery caused by their indulgences feed the archons, but the pain caused by this traps the victims in a feedback loop where it becomes more difficult for them to awaken to gnosis. Their innocence is stolen. And elites get real-world benefits from these heinous acts. I'm not going to go into all of the details of the Epstein files here. You'd have to be living under a rock not to know the generalities. But like Epstein, there have been countless other elites through history that have done similar things. And it's usually when a society is kind of unraveling. Gilles de Rais, he was a French nobleman, Marshal of France, and a military commander who fought alongside Joan of Arc during the 100 Years' War. After Joan of Arc's execution in 1431, de Rais withdrew to his estates in western France. Between roughly 1432 and 1440, he was accused of kidnapping children, mostly boys, torture and sexual assault, murder. Estimates vary widely, dozens to possibly over 100 children. In 1440, church and civil authorities tried him. He confessed to many of the crimes, possibly under pressure. He was hanged and burned the same year. So you might ask, why was he tried if he was part of the elites? Well, the immediate trigger for the trial was actually a separate incident. He seized church property during a dispute, threatening a priest. Because that violated church law, the church opened the formal investigation. So essentially they turned on him. The crimes had went on for years before this. Nobody bothered about it. So it was essentially political. If this had not happened, maybe we would never have known about all these murders. Elizabeth Báthory. She was a powerful Hungarian countess from the wealthy Bathory family, which produced kings and princes in Central Europe. She became infamous for allegedly murdering large numbers of young women in her castles during the late 1500s and early 1600s. Common accusations included beating and torturing servant girls, killing young women, collecting victims for years with the help of servants. The legend that she bathed in virgin's blood to preserve her youth appeared later and is possibly a myth, but who knows? One servant reportedly suggested a number of 650 victims. Because she was nobility, she was not executed. Instead, she was imprisoned inside a sealed room in her castle until her death in 1614. I suspect that's what's going to happen to Prince Andrew. But again, why did they turn on her? The ruler of Hungary at the time, Matthias II, reportedly owed the Bathory family a large debt. If she was convicted and her property confiscated, the crown could avoid paying that debt. When you look into many of these cases, it's not about justice. It never is. But there are others. Delphine Lalaurie, a wealthy New Orleans aristocrat. In 1834, a fire exposed a hidden torture chamber in her mansion. Enslaved people were found mutilated and chained in horrific conditions. After a mob attacked the house, she escaped New Orleans and fled to France. There was no criminal trial. Fritz Harman was a police informant and criminal. He exploited connections with authorities. He murdered at least 24 boys and young men in Hanover. Allegations that he sold human flesh as black market meat circulated widely at the time. But there are many, many more. I'm not going to list them all. I'm just trying to prove a point here. The elites have done this over and over and over again. Perhaps these acts of cruelty and transgression are kind of offering a Faustian bargain to the rulers, manipulating truth. But in my opinion, this is more than just about Faustian bargains. As far as the Epstein files, I think this is a multi-part plan. We are seeing this stuff because they want us to see this stuff. In dark magic, consent is part of it. You know, with vampires needing to be invited in. You can check out my video on vampires if you want to know more about that. But I believe that this information dump is part of the consent. They want us to consent to their crimes, but they also want confusion. I'll get to that more in a minute. But if you think about it, it's been, we have the files, we don't have the files. Well, we'll release some of the files. We released some of the files, but they were redacted, but oh, we redacted them wrong, or we redacted them and didn't know how to use a PDF program. So people were able to take the redactions off. But overall, there's a lot of nonsense that is burying a few fragments of truth. So I'll pose this question. How do we even know these files are real? How do we even know the emails are real? I mean, have you thought about that? That maybe this is all some kind of psyop to see what we will do or not do about it? Perhaps it's a kind of test, but I think it gets more sinister than just the emails. Body doubles and confusion spells. Over the last few years, there's been this trend about body doubles. Epstein's body, people have pointed out problems with the pics. Ghislaine Maxwell, a few photos from prison appearances look different from earlier pictures of her, which led some people to speculate that a look-alike or body double was being used. Some YouTubers have analyzed the photos with facial recognition and they found huge differences. Joe Biden, in the files, there's a report that he was executed by firing squad in 2019 and replaced with a body double. It's unverified, but people noticed during his presidency, his height was off, his voice sometimes, his facial structure, his ears. Most recently, it was Jim Carrey. He was interviewed at this awards show. As of now, Jim Carrey himself has not put out a direct personal statement denying the body double or clone rumors. His publicist did, but that's not him, that's his publicist. He's even gone on record in the past that they may get him because he's spoken out against the Illuminati before. I don't know, why is this happening again and again? Do they think that people are that stupid that we wouldn't notice? Or is there another aspect to this? Artificial intelligence. It's muddied the waters even more. Some of this is state-run, some is just people looking for clickbait views. But both methods are making it harder and harder to make informed assessments of information, whether it's real or not. I believe this is done on purpose. In Dungeons and Dragons, there is a spell called Confusion. Confusion is mainly used to disrupt enemy actions in combat, potentially making them attack allies, waste actions, or move erratically. It's less about direct damage and more about control and chaos. I believe this is what they're doing in an indirect way. I've been reading this book on Egregores. I will have a video coming out next month, but this is very important, I think, to what is going on here. An egregore is a concept from occult and esoteric traditions that refers to a collective thought form or group consciousness. It's like an entity created and sustained by the shared beliefs, emotions, and intentions of a group of people. It exists because people focus on it, drawing energy from their attention, devotion, or emotional investment. So I think this is about keeping people chained to the egregore called fear and confusion. Moni Sadhi said, "Whoever is fearless is hard to involtuate for any danger." Involtuate means to magically harm or influence someone by using an image, doll, or effigy that represents them. I believe that the elites feed this egregore in two ways. In the case of fear, through wars, criminality, human trafficking, dissent and anarchy, problems with morality, drug addiction, mass shootings, etc. In the case of confusion, predictive programming, like on The Simpsons, body doubles, are these clones or just actors with makeup, artificial intelligence, and all of the problems that it is having, social media, deepfakes, psyops, VR, simulation, hypothesis, cosmology, many, many, many things. My question is, do they have the same problems with their artificial intelligence as we do? People are getting buried in information and falsehoods. Most of it is misleading, a tiny fraction is true. The only way to break this egregore or break this spell is to limit exposure or to be ultra conscious of it as you move through the world. Stay informed, but don't fixate on the information. It's difficult, I guess. Most people desire to be informed, at least to some degree, but information is the very thing that's damaging us. I'm tutoring some elementary kids right now, and this generation, about 8 years old right now, they are fried. They're completely fried, completely out of focus. There are all kinds of problems with their behavior. I've been teaching for 20 years, and this is by far the worst generation that I've come across. Most of this is probably because of 2020 and they did a lot of their learning online. But often when I'm working, I think to myself, we're adults, so we have some ability to protect ourselves from this. But I think the world is going to be very, very different very, very soon. When these kids grow up and they're running the world, I just kind of think it's going to be dangerous, to be honest. Is Epstein dead? I doubt it. Saddam, Bin Laden, the Ayatollah, Jim Carrey, they're all probably with him somewhere on some island, sipping margaritas and laughing about how pathetic we all are. And that's the thing, isn't it? In many ways, people have become kind of pathetic. I mean, maybe they always were, but in any case, I feel like we're slipping. And here's another thing. If Epstein is as smart as the media has made him out to be, he would have an exoteric life and an esoteric life. I mean, the idea of a supervillain pulling the strings on his own island is kind of laughable. It's like James Bond or Cobra in G.I. Joe or something. No, if he's that smart, the island is just part of the illusion. I mean, be honest with yourself. Do you really think he was caught? Do people like this get caught? I don't know. The only way I can see it being that way is if there's some kind of schism behind the scenes that we don't understand. Maybe we will learn more about it later and then things will come into perspective. I'm not sure. Another thing with these people is that they always need scapegoats. It's kind of a pressure valve. It's a focus on a few to take away the attention of the many. And in the end, nothing happens to them anyway. They are placed under house arrest, made to testify, but nothing happens. They go to some country club prison. Do you think that if concrete evidence comes out about Hillary or Bill or Les Wexner, do you think they're going to be held accountable? All their testimony so far has been laughable. There have been so many people mentioned in the files. Many of them have left the country. I would love to see all of them interviewed, but I doubt it's going to happen. More files. Do we really want more? You know, when you see something, you can't take it back. It imprints on your soul. I had this friend in South Korea that would send me all kinds of weird memes and stuff. And one day he sent me a video of a guy that got lit on fire in China. And I didn't know what it was when I opened it. And I was so angry because I can't undo that, you know? It's like imprinted on me, and it was horrific. I can never unsee it. So if they actually bothered to release the really, really heinous stuff, if it still exists, if they release it unredacted, would you want to see it? I certainly don't want to see it. It's like when you hear about those cops struggling with murder cases, or, you know, a serial killer or something, they can't undo what they've seen. These kind of graphic things taint your soul. And maybe that's the point of the release, to demoralize us, to get us acclimated for worse things. I'm not sure if I can think of anything worse than what's been stated in the files. The hints at cannibalism are pretty rough, I think. And the kid stuff, well, that is its own thing. This is about consent. By seeing and not condemning, they make us complicit in their crime. It's one reason why they throw their rituals in our face in front of TV, you know, or pop stars, halftime shows, all that stuff. Are they untouchable? I think so. I think they are. If you've seen the Clintons' hearing footage, it's a clown show. It's ridiculous. The person asking them questions doesn't even sound like a lawyer. The pretend fury of Hillary is just like when they found all the stuff on the hard drive, which nothing ever happened from that. The sly, nostalgic smirks of Bill, same thing. Nothing ever happened with Monica Lewinsky either. It's all theater. This isn't about Epstein or Maxwell or anyone else named. It's about the system, the pattern, the invisible mechanisms that keep power and chaos in play. The Demiurge, the Egregore, the confusion, they're not just ideas. They're frameworks for understanding how fear, consent, and distraction can be harvested. So if they are scapegoated, what about the real architects? They will remain untouchable, laughing behind the curtain. And every time we get sucked into the files, the images, the speculation, we feed the cycle. I'm doing it with this video. I hate to say it, but I feel like some of this information is important. So what can we do? Stay aware, don't fixate, protect your mind, understand the game, but don't let it rule you. Information is a tool, but it's also a weapon. They want the misery, they want the hopelessness. That's the point. They want us in despair. If you let them do that, you will be in despair. I don't know. If you have any thoughts about this, you can post them below, but that's all I got for this one. Take care. Have a good day.